The wind was howling that night like it carried the voices of the dead. Bo Thatcher wasn't riding for trouble, just shelter. But fate had other plans. In the whiteout of a deadly storm, he followed a sound no man could ignore, the cries of a woman giving birth, alone. Inside a broken cabin, with a corpse still bleeding on the floor. What happened next would test every piece of his soul, his guilt, his grief, his grit, because when you step into a stranger's storm, sometimes it becomes your war. If you believe in second chances, in courage born from loss, and the kind of Western story that grabs your heart and won't let go, like, share, and subscribe, because this one stays with you. The storm had turned the trail to glass. Bo Thatcher leaned forward in the saddle, squinting through the swirling white chaos that swallowed the canyon pass. His gelding Duke moved slow and careful, hooves sinking deep with every step. Snow packed under the stirrups, crusting his boots, caking in his beard. His knuckles were raw, frozen around the reins. He wasn't supposed to be here, not tonight, not in this hell of a wind. But when you leave one place with nothing and have nowhere to go, direction stops mattering. The wind screamed past his ears, cold enough to slice skin. It came from all sides, as if the mountain itself were breathing. Heavy and mean, his coat, lined with waxed canvas and shearling, was soaked through. The bedroll strapped behind his saddle stiffened with ice. Even Duke was trembling beneath him, nostrils flaring white with every breath. He needed shelter. Bo had passed a sign 3 miles back, half buried under snow and rot. It said 6 Mile Hollow once, but the paint was flaking, and the post leaned like it had rather fall. The trail was narrow, lined with black trees, bowing under the weight of snow. Somewhere ahead, he knew, there used to be cabins, miners, shacks and trapping outposts. He kept riding, and then, through the wail of wind and snow, he heard it. At first he thought it was the storm itself, just some gust bending pine, but it came again, clearer this time. A cry, high, human, not animal. Another cry followed, wet, raw, and terrifying, a sound that didn't belong in this place, a sound that had no right to exist in this kind of cold. A woman. He yanked the reins. Duke turned sharply, slipping on ice. Bo leaned into the movement, heart thudding. There, to the left, a flicker of light between the trees. He dismounted without thinking, boots crunching into powder up to his knees. Duke stamped behind him, unwilling to go farther, but Bo pressed on, one hand on the revolver at his hip, the other shielding. His face he trudged toward the glow. The light came from a cabin, barely holding together under snow. Its roof sagged in the middle. The front porch tilted forward, one post broken clean through. Snow had drifted halfway up the walls, and the door hung crooked on one hinge. Through the gaps in the shutters, firelight flickered like a dying heartbeat. The cries came again. He didn't knock. He shoved the door open with his shoulder. Inside, warmth hit him like a slap. But so did the smell, sweat, blood, gunpowder. The fire in the stone hearth was guttering low, casting long shadows across a room that looked torn in half. A smashed table, a broken bottle. Blood sprayed in a wide arc across the floorboards like someone had spun when they fell. And there, sprawled just feet from the hearth, was a man, face down, boots stiff, a hole in his back the size of a silver dollar. The blood had gone dark, stiff, dead. Bo didn't move, didn't speak, just scanned the room, heart pounding against his ribs like a hammer on an anvil. Then the cry came again, and he saw her. On the far side of the hearth, half in shadow, lay a woman. She couldn't have been more than 25. Her dress was soaked through with sweat and blood. A threadbare blanket covered her lower half, but her legs trembled violently beneath it. Her hands were gripping the edge of a wooden chair, white-knuckled, nails broken. Her long brown hair stuck to her face. Her eyes, wide and glassy, didn't seemed to register him at all. She was in labor, deep in it. Another contraction hit. She screamed, a sound so full of terror and pain it split the air. Bo dropped his saddlebag. His revolver hit the floor with a thud he barely noticed. "No, no, no," he muttered under his breath. "Not again." But he was already moving. He pulled off his coat, threw it across the floor beside her, and rolled up his sleeves with fingers stiff from cold. "I'm here," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't respond, just kept gasping and crying. Bo glanced toward the dead man, then back to her. Blood had already soaked through the blanket. It wasn't fresh. He figured she'd been at it a while. Too long, maybe. "Where's your help?" he asked, his voice low. "Midwife? Neighbor?" Still nothing. He swallowed hard. His hands were already shaking before he touched her, but not from the cold. They always shook when he thought of Anna, his wife, dead 7 years now, lost in a birthing bed just like this one. Same blood, same heat, same screams. He hadn't touched another woman since, not in love, not in trust, and certainly not like this. But he'd watched the midwife once. He'd seen what to do. Bo pulled a kettle from the hearth, poured hot water into a basin, grabbed what rags he could find. He talked to the girl, softly, gently, even if she didn't respond. He could see the baby crowning. "You're doing good," he told her. "It's close now. You gotta push," she whimpered. Her teeth were chattering. Her fingers dug grooves into the chair leg. "Push," Bo said again, and she did. The next scream tore from her throat like it had been hiding there for a year. Bo reached down, hands slick with blood and water. The fire roared behind him. The storm outside shrieked like a banshee. And then, just like that, it happened. A baby. Red and wet and tiny. It let out one small, wailing cry, and Bo's own breath caught. It was a girl. He wrapped her in the closest clean cloth he could find, a piece of curtain from the wall, and laid her gently on the mother's chest. The young woman let out a sound between a sob and a laugh. Bo sat back on his heels, exhausted, as if he'd run 100 miles, and that's when he noticed the sound outside had changed. The storm was still there, but beneath it now was something else. Hoofbeats distant, then closer. Bo grabbed his revolver, crossed to the door in 2 steps, looked out through a slit in the shutter. 2 riders, coming fast. He turned back to the woman. She was barely conscious, but her eyes fluttered open as he crouched beside her. "Who was the man?" he asked. She blinked slowly. "Ray? Yours?" A pause. Then a small shake of her head. "He took me," she whispered. "Said he'd keep me alive long enough to have the baby. Then sell us both." Bo's jaw clenched. He looked at the baby in her arms, so small, so warm. A flicker of life in a world buried in cold and violence. And now the men who followed Ray were coming for what they thought he had, or what he'd stolen. Bo moved fast. He barred the door, doused the fire until it was just embers, pulled the rifle from the wall and checked the rounds. 5 shots. His revolver had 6. 11 bullets, no more. He dragged the dead man's body behind the hearth, threw a rug over the blood. Then he turned to the woman. "I don't know your name," he said, "but I need you to listen." She nodded faintly. "If anything happens, there's a trapdoor behind that cabinet. Crawl in, hold the baby, don't come out unless it's me." Her ropey lip trembled, but she nodded again. The hoofbeats stopped outside. Voices. Then a knock. Bo stepped into the middle of the room, one hand on the revolver, eyes cold. The door creaked, and the long night began. The knock hadn't come twice, just once, firm, slow, deliberate. Bo Thatcher stood square in the center of the cabin, the last whisper of the fire casting a red glow across his boots. His revolver hung low in his hand, not raised yet, but ready. He wasn't trembling anymore. His body had shifted into something colder, sharper. Behind him, the young woman clutched her newborn to her chest. She'd crawled behind the cabinet, like he said, hidden except for the faintest rustle of breath. He could hear her whispering soft, broken things to the child she barely knew. Outside, the wind screamed, but the hoofbeats had gone still. Bo tilted his head. Then, creak. The cabin door groaned wider on its ruined hinge, pushed slowly by a hand that wanted him to hear it, not fear it. The snow beyond was a wall of white, glowing faintly with moonlight where it pressed against black trees. Two figures appeared in the doorway, dark against the blizzard. They stepped inside like they owned the place. The first was tall and wiry, face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat beaded with ice. A pistol dangled from a gloved hand, like it was part of his body. His coat flared as he walked, spurs quiet in the snow-heavy air. The second man was heavier, built like a butcher. His nose had been broken more than once, and his left eye drooped. Half shut, he had a rifle slung across his back but didn't bother reaching for it. Bo didn't speak. The tall one stepped closer, scanning the room. "Cozy," he said. "Didn't expect it to still be standing in this weather." Bo narrowed his eyes. "You lost?" The tall man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You could say that. His voice was rough, eastern drawl stretched out. "We were traveling with a third. He said he had a place up here. Ray Eddings." Bo didn't flinch. "Tall? Black coat?" the man added. "Fast with a mouth? Slow with a brain?" Bo nodded once. "Saw a man pass through earlier. Storm had him rattled. Didn't stay." The heavy one grunted. "That don't sound like Ray. He ain't the rattled type." The tall man stepped. Closer, boots creaking on the floorboards. "You're staying here alone?" Bo let the revolver tilt just enough in his hand that the firelight glinted off the barrel. The tall man paused. "No offense," he added with a grin. "Just seems like a rough storm to ride solo in." Bo met his gaze. "What are you really looking for?" The tall man gave a casual shrug, walking toward the hearth like they were old friends. He crouched near the ashes, picked up a half-burnt stick, and stirred the embers. "Ray had something of ours," he said. "Didn't much care to share it. Gold, maybe, or names in a ledger. Depends who you ask." Bo's eyes flicked to the body behind the hearth, hidden under a woven rug. He didn't blink. "Like I said," he murmured, "I haven't seen him." The heavy one stepped inside now, boots thudding as he looked around the room. "Funny," he grunted. "You said he passed through. Now you ain't seen him." Bo's jaw tightened. "I said he passed. Didn't stop." The tall one rose to full height. "Mind if we take a look around?" "I do." A long silence. Outside, the wind rattled the shutters like bones on wood. Inside, nothing moved. The tall man's smile faded. "I think we'll look anyway." He turned, and that's when Bo moved. The revolver came up fast, leveled at the man's chest. His voice didn't waver. "You take one step, and I put you in the ground with him." The heavy one froze. The tall one stared down the barrel, unimpressed. "So you did see him?" "I saw him die," Bo said low and steady. "I saw what he was about to do, and I'll tell you plain, I'd do it again." The tall man's face didn't change. Then he chuckled, not loud, not unkind. "So you're the hero type." "I'm the don't push me type." Behind the cabinet the baby whimpered, a soft, broken squeak. The tall man tilted his head. "What was that?" Bo didn't answer. His thumb pulled back the hammer. The sound echoed like thunder in the small room. "You take one more step toward that cabinet," Bo said, "and I won't warn you again." The heavy one moved first. Fast, too fast for a man his size. He reached for his rifle, half slung across his back. Bo fired. The shot roared like a cannon in the close space. The bullet hit the heavy man in the shoulder, spinning him backward. Into the wall. He cried out. Once, then collapsed, the rifle clattering to the floor beside him. The tall man flinched but didn't draw. His hands rose slowly. All right. Get out," Bo growled. "Take him and leave." The man's eyes narrowed. "We ain't leaving empty-handed." "You already are." The tall man's gaze dropped to the heavy one, groaning and bleeding onto the floor. Then he looked back at Bo, calculating. "You don't know what Ray took." "I don't care." The man shook his head. "It ain't just gold. He had a name in that ledger, a name that ties to something bigger, government, marshals. If he was bringing that here, Then he died for it, Bo cut in. And you're about to join him? The tall man studied him. You're not bluffing. No. Another long pause. Then the man reached down, grabbed his wounded partner by the coat, and dragged him toward the door. The snow howled through the open gap as they left. The door creaked again, then silence, broken only by the slow drip of blood. Onto the floor. Bo didn't move until the hoofbeats faded down the ridge. Then he exhaled. His hands trembled as he lowered the revolver. He turned back toward the cabinet. The woman was staring at him now, eyes wide, terrified, but awake. You shot him. He would have killed us. She swallowed, face pale and slick with sweat. The baby mewled softly against her shoulder. I don't even know your name. Bo Thatcher. Ellie, she whispered. Ellie Morrow. Bo crossed the room slowly, crouching beside her. You all right? I don't know, she said. I think so. She looked down at the child in her arms. She's alive. Bo smiled, just barely. Yeah, she is. The cabin felt colder now, the fire too weak to fight the storm. We need more wood, Bo said, and food. If they come back. They will, Ellie whispered. He met her eyes. They always do. The cabin was too quiet after the gunshot. Snow still battered the shutters. Wind still hissed through the cracks in the wall, but inside it was like everything had held its breath. The blood from the wounded man puddled near the door and froze. In places, steam rising off it like smoke from a dying fire. Bo Thatcher moved slowly. He closed the door with his boot, bolted it again, then set to work without saying a word. He fetched kindling from the back wall, split the driest wood with a wedge and mallet, and fed the fire until it snapped alive. It wasn't warmth yet, but it was the promise of it. Then he dragged a trunk from the corner and barricaded the door, just in case the two riders changed their minds. When he finally turned back, Ellie Morrow was still where he'd left her, sitting upright, back pressed to the wall, her baby tucked against her chest with one hand cradling the tiny head like it was made of glass. Her face was a strange mix of relief and terror. The blood had dried on her legs and arms. Her lips were pale, her breath shallow. She hadn't looked away from him since he shot the man. Bo took a slow step forward, then crouched near the hearth so his movements didn't startle her. You should lie down. Ellie didn't move. I can't. Is it the pain? No, she said quietly. I don't want to close my eyes and wake up to someone else standing in the room. Bo nodded. I'll stay awake. She studied him then, really looked at him. The stubble across his jaw, the scar over his left eyebrow, the worn duster he hadn't taken off, his boots still crusted with ice and trail mud, his hands not shaking anymore. You've done this before, she whispered. Bo looked at the fire. I've watched it before. Once. Your wife? He didn't answer for a moment, just fed another log into the fire and leaned back against the wall. Then he nodded once. She didn't make it. Neither did the baby. Ellie's throat tightened. I'm sorry, he shook his head. Storm came early, like this one, couldn't find a midwife in time. I sat on the porch for 3 hours before the screaming stopped. She closed her eyes. I swore I'd never be near it again, Bo added. Not that sound, not that blood. Ellie looked down at her baby. She doesn't have a name yet. Bo glanced over. You got one in mind? Ellie was quiet. Then, I used to read books my brother sent from Kansas. One had a girl named Willa. She wasn't scared of anything. Willa, Bo said, testing the sound. That suits her. The baby whimpered in her sleep. Ellie adjusted the cloth, her fingers trembling. She's warm now, Ellie whispered. That's something. Bo rose to his feet and walked toward the shelves by the window. Most were bare. Just some canned beans, dried cornmeal, and a cracked jar of lard. No meat, no salt. Nothing you'd keep a baby alive on. He turned back. How long were you here before I came? I don't know. A day, maybe 2. With him? Ellie nodded. Slow. Her voice cracked. He picked me up from a wagon wreck 2 counties over. Said he'd take me to Black Rock, to a boarding house where I could have the baby safe. He had a badge. Called himself a marshal. Bo stiffened. Ray Eddings? Yes. He wasn't a marshal. She knew that now. She didn't need. It confirmed. But hearing it aloud made her flinch. "He kept me alive," she whispered, "but only just. Wouldn't let me eat until sundown. Kept the fire low, said I'd be easier to control that way." Bo didn't speak. "He told me the baby'd fetch more alive," she added. Bo's jaw tensed. "What else did he say?" Ellie swallowed hard. "He said he took something off a man in Hastings, a ledger full of names, men who'd taken bribes, men who'd hanged the wrong folk. Said he'd trade it to the Cartwrights down south for 10,000 in coin and safe passage to Mexico." Bo went still. The Cartwrights. He'd heard that name before. A gang dressed in suits and silver belt buckles, slick talkers with clean boots and dirty hands, men who bought judges, poisoned juries, and owned half the sheriffs west of Abilene. If Ray had something they wanted, and they sent men this far north to retrieve it, it wasn't just about gold. Bo turned to the hearth and lifted the rug. Ray's body was still there, stiff and pale. He searched the coat first, pockets inside and out, a small flask, 2 coins, a torn playing card. Then his fingers found the inside lining, a slit, a hidden pouch. He pulled out a leather-bound notebook, cracked and worn. Bloodstains flecked the edges. Ledger. Bo opened it slowly. Inside, pages of names, not just outlaws. Judges, sheriffs, bankers, 3 U.S. Marshals. Beside each name was a code, dates, symbols, some kind of cipher. He flipped through the pages, and on one of them, circled in red ink, was a name he hadn't read in 10 years. Thatcher, William Bosey. Throat dried up. His brother Ellie must have seen his face shift. "You know someone in there?" Bo nodded once. "He's dead now," he said, voice low. "Died in prison for a robbery he didn't commit. If this had come out sooner..." Ellie's eyes widened. "That ledger could clear his name?" "Could have," Bo said. "Now it might just get us killed." He tucked the ledger into his own coat. Not out of greed, out of instinct, out of duty. Ellie shifted to one side and winced. "I need to wash her. She's sticky, and I think I'm bleeding." "More than I should," Bo stood. "I'll heat water." He set a kettle over the fire and found clean rags in a box under the bed. Quiet work. Necessary work. But as he folded the cloth, he kept glancing at the door, listening, because the night wasn't over. And if those men were working for the Cartwrights, they weren't done. As the kettle hissed, Ellie whispered to the child in her arms, "You're safe now. You're warm. You're here." Bo looked back at her, the girl who hadn't screamed when the gun went off, the girl who gave birth in a blizzard beside a dead man, the girl who named her baby after a character who feared nothing. And for the first time since Anna died, Bo felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. Dawn never came easy in a blizzard. The light that filtered through the warped shutters wasn't golden or warm. It was gray, flat, like the sun had been buried in snow, along with everything else. Bo Thatcher stood at the cabin's only window, holding back the curtain just enough to peer through without being seen. The snow had drifted nearly to the sill. The trees outside groaned under the weight of it. The trail they'd ridden in on was already half gone, erased like footprints in a bad dream. No riders, no smoke, no birds. Bo turned from the window and looked at the woman sleeping on the floor. Ellie had finally collapsed just before first light, after bathing the baby, after changing the rags, after whispering a dozen names and settling on one. Willa, June Morrow, a name that somehow carried both strength and softness in 3 syllables. Bo had made a bed for them both beside the fire, using his coat and the less rotted quilts from the trunk. Willa slept curled against her mother's chest, tiny breath puffing with each heartbeat. Ellie didn't stir, not even when the logs popped in the hearth or when Bo dragged Ray's body out through the back and buried it under a foot of snow. Beside the woodpile, no prayers, no marker, just a shovel and silence. The storm had eased, but not ended. Snow still fell, soft and slow now, like ash. Inside, Bo brewed coffee thick enough to float a nail, and flipped through the ledger again. He tried not to focus on his brother's name, tried to read it all like it was just ink on paper, but his hand tightened around the edge of the book every time he turned a page. This wasn't just a record of dirty lawmen, it was blackmail, strategy, a roadmap of rot that ran deeper than the mines in Silver Creek. One name came up more than once, Asa Cartwright. There were arrows pointing to other names, account numbers, payment logs, amounts. One note read, 10,000 in exchange for the Salt Branch Marshal's silence. Bo closed the book slowly. Cartwright wouldn't let this ledger go. He'd burned towns to get it back. He stared into the fire and wondered what kind of man he'd become. Alone out here with a dead criminal, a mother, and a newborn child who already had enemies. He hadn't planned to be anyone's protector. Hell, he hadn't planned to live past the winter, but now he looked at Ellie. Then at the tiny fist curled beneath her chin. Now he had a reason to stay upright. The knock came mid-morning, not loud, just enough to stir the air. Bo froze. He rose, slid his revolver from the table, and moved to the door without a sound. This knock wasn't like last night. This one had rhythm, pattern, a steady tap-tap. Pause. Tap-tap. Bo's jaw tightened. That knock meant something. He remembered it years ago, long before Anna, long before the cabin, when he still wore a badge. He opened the door a crack. Man stood on the porch, coat flapping in the wind, a rifle strapped tight to his back, and a leather badge pinned crooked on his vest. "Thatcher?" the man said, voice gruff. "It's Caleb Dwyer. Don't shoot now." Bo's breath caught. "Caleb?" the man nodded. "I'd say it's good to see you, but I'm guessing you'd call that a lie." Bo opened the door wider and stepped back. "Get inside." Caleb moved quickly, stomping snow from his boots. He looked leaner than Bo remembered, with silver in his beard and a permanent squint in his right eye. Bo closed the door. "What the hell are you doing out here?" Caleb unpinned his rifle and leaned it against the wall. "Cartwright's got men riding hard through this region. Word is Ray Eddings went rogue with something valuable, and Cartwright wants it back." Bo folded his arms. "And you?" "I'm chasing ghosts," Caleb said, glancing at the fire. "I heard Ray was headed this way. Thought if I found him first, I could maybe stop the next 10 deaths." Bo said nothing. Caleb's eyes flicked to the folded ledger on the table. "So he was here." Bo nodded. "He's dead." "I figured." "He had this," Bo said, gesturing toward the book. "You ever seen something like it?" Caleb stepped forward and opened the cover. He skimmed the pages, his face tightening. "Damn fool. This isn't just names. This is evidence, indictments waiting to happen. They'll kill anyone near it." Caleb shut the book. "They already have." He looked toward the sleeping forms by the fire. "She his?" "No." "He took her captive." Caleb's jaw set. "Then we need to get her out of here." Bo frowned. "She just gave birth. She can't travel." Caleb shook his head. "They'll come back. Next time, it won't be 2 half-drunk enforcers. It'll be professionals. 30, maybe 40 miles south, Cartwright's got a camp. He could have sent scouts already." Bo crossed his arms. "So, what do you suggest?" "I'll ride back. To Red Hollow. Bring supplies, medical, maybe a wagon. But you need to be ready. If I'm not back in 2 days, they got to me too." Bo nodded once. "You still carry your badge?" "Not officially," Caleb said, "but some folks still trust the weight of it." He slung his rifle back over his shoulder. "Don't let that ledger leave your sight." Bo opened the door again. Wind hit them both in the face. "You're still a fool, Thatcher," Caleb muttered as he stepped out, "but damn if you don't pick the right causes." Then he vanished into the trees. Bo bolted the door and turned back. Ellie was awake, watching him. Her cheeks were pale, lips cracked, but her eyes were clear. "Who was that?" "An old friend. Maybe the last one I've got." She swallowed. "They're coming, aren't they?" "Yes." She looked down at Willa. "Then I need to stand." "No, you don't. I can't be on the floor when they come, Bo. I won't die like that." Bo didn't argue. He helped her sit up slowly, then supported her as she stood. Her legs buckled at first, but she clenched her jaw and steadied herself. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and placed a hand on her back as she walked. Toward the window. Outside, gray, snow, silence. Inside, a child, a fire, and a man with 11 bullets left. Ellie could barely stand, but she wouldn't sit back down. She moved like a woman in a fever dream, clutching the wall for balance, cradling Willa with one arm and leaning on Beau's shoulder with the other. Every few steps, her knees buckled, but she forced them straight again. The pain didn't scare her. Weakness did. Beau wanted to carry her, to lay her down and bar the world out, but something in her eyes told him she needed this, to move, to walk, to stand. It wasn't just physical. It was defiance. It was survival. She stopped near the window, breathing hard, and looked out at the world that had tried to bury her. "Have you ever held a baby and a pistol at the same time?" she asked softly. Beau blinked. "No." "Well, I might need to learn." He said nothing, just stepped away and retrieved Ray's pistol from the table. It was a Colt Dragoon, heavy, old, oiled, but untrustworthy. He checked the barrel and offered it to her. She took it in both hands, gritting her teeth as she adjusted Willa's weight with one arm and cradled the grip with the other. Her arms trembled. "I won't hit anything," she whispered. "You don't have to," Beau said. "You just have to be willing to try." Ellie gave a small nod, then carefully laid the pistol on the mantel and kissed the top of her child's head, just in case. Outside, the snow had begun to fall harder again, like the sky hadn't made up its mind. The wind had shifted from west to north, and Beau didn't like that, not one bit. He stepped onto the porch and scanned the tree line with the spyglass Caleb had left in the saddlebag. He turned slowly, methodically, then froze. Smoke. A thin black thread rising above the ridge to the south, not from a campfire, not this time of year. It was signal smoke, dry pine and pitch, a scout's flare, the kind used to mark location for riders approaching from a distance. Beau dropped the glass. "They're here." Ellie tensed inside the cabin. "How many?" "Can't tell yet." She looked at him through the open doorway. "Do we run?" He shook his head. They'd see our tracks. Hear Willa cry. The cold alone would finish us before they caught us. Then what? We dig in. He set to work without another word. He pulled the table to the center of the room and flipped it on its side. Barricade. Took down the quilts and nailed them over the windows to block the glass, keep the warmth in and the light from leaking out. He checked the revolver and Ray's pistol. Loaded, cleaned, laid them beside the rifle near the hearth. Then he dragged every piece of furniture he didn't need and piled it near the door. Ellie sat on the floor, arms curled around her knees. Willa nestled beneath her coat. She watched. Him in silence. "How do you know what to do?" she asked. He paused. "I fought in the war. After that, I wore a badge, long enough to know that when men want something bad enough, you either give it to them or you make them bleed for every inch. And what happens if they don't stop?" "Then you bleed too," he said, "but at least you know why." Ellie nodded slowly. "You think she'll remember this?" she whispered, looking down at Willa. "No," Beau said. "But you will." Silence fell between them. Then Willa stirred, small, fragile movements under the cloth, and let out a soft, tired wail. Beau turned, his expression tight. "Keep her quiet. They're close enough now to hear." Ellie hushed the child, her voice barely more than breath. "Shh, shh. Baby girl, just the wind and Mama's arms." Beau moved to the window and crouched low. Spyglass, again. He scanned the ridge. The smoke had stopped, but movement replaced it. 4 riders, slow, confident. Men who weren't in a rush because they didn't think they had to be. 2 of them rode with rifles across their laps. One had a long red scarf that blew behind him like a flag. The last was older, thinner, dressed better than the rest. His hat was clean, his coat tailored. He carried no visible weapon, but Beau knew men like that didn't need to. He was the one with the orders, the one with Cartwright's words in his mouth. Bo watched them dismount halfway down the trail. 2 moved left, 2 right, flanking slow and wide, professional, measured, no wasted steps. He ducked low and slid back inside. They'll be here in minutes. Ellie's hands gripped the edge of her coat. Will we survive? Bo looked at her and for once didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, because he didn't know. He moved to the hearth and grabbed the ledger. He tucked it into the floorboards beneath the fire, wrapped in oilcloth, then shoveled ash over it. Cartwright doesn't get this, he said. Not today, not ever. A knock. Sharp, cold. Then a voice, high and clear. Inside the cabin, this is Asa Cartwright's. Representative, we have business and questions. Bo stood. I want the woman and the book, not necessarily in that order. Silence. We know Ray's dead. We found the blood, the tracks. We're not here for a fight, unless you insist on one. Bo stepped toward the door. You came all this way in a blizzard, he called back, voice hard. You might as well freeze a while longer. The man outside chuckled. You must be Bo Thatcher. Cartwright said you were the stubborn type. You can tell Cartwright he should have brought more men. The chuckle stopped. Last chance, Thatcher. Bo looked back at Ellie. She held. Willa tight? The pistol was within reach? No, Bo said. It's yours. The pause outside stretched. Then, gunfire. A window shattered. Bo dropped to one knee and fired twice through the wall. He heard a cry. A body hit snow. Another shot rang out, splintering the doorframe. Ellie screamed once and curled tighter around Willa. Bo moved fast, rifle to shoulder, eyes sharp. Another shape passed the window. He fired again. He hit something. Or someone. Footsteps scrambled outside. The wind carried shouts. Go left. He's reloading. Bo ducked, pulled back behind the flipped table. He didn't hear them move to the back, so he turned just as the door was kicked open with a boot. The scarfed man entered first. Rifle up. Bo fired from the hip. The man spun backward, hit the doorframe, and crumpled. Another followed, stepping over the body. Bo ducked and lunged. The second man didn't expect it. Bo tackled him. Hard into the wall. The rifle clattered. They struggled, fists and elbows, until Bo's hand found the hilt of his knife and drove it forward, a wet grunt. The man sagged. Bo dropped him. Then silence again, heavy, thudding silence. Ellie was shaking. The baby was crying, louder now. Bo turned to her. You all right? She nodded, tears streaking her face. Then, a sound from the roof. Boots. Snow sliding. A shadow over the hearth. Bo looked up just as the trapdoor in the ceiling gave way. The older man, the one with clean clothes, dropped into the cabin like a spider. He landed smooth, quiet, in his hand, a long, narrow revolver. He didn't raise it. He just looked at Bo. Where's the book? Bo didn't speak. I've been sent to retrieve it. I don't care how. But I'd rather do it clean. Bo stepped between him and Ellie. You're not getting it, the man sighed. Then, you'll die for it. He raised the gun. A shot rang out, but not his. The man jerked backward. His gun clattered to the floor. A second shot hit him in the side. He turned in shock. Ellie stood behind the table, both hands on Ray's Colt Dragoon, face white as bone, eyes like fire. The man staggered, fell, and didn't move again. Bo stared at her. She let the pistol fall. I told you I might need to learn, she said softly. The cabin smelled like blood, gunpowder, and sweat. Smoke from the shattered hearth coiled up into the rafters, mixing with the steam of cooling bodies. Bo moved through the wreckage like a man sifting through pieces of himself. He checked pulses. He knew we're gone, rolled bodies away from doorways, and barred the windows again, though he knew no fresh wind would bring peace. 4 men had come. None of them walked away. He lit a lantern and set it on the mantel, casting gold across the wreckage. 1 man had died halfway through the door, 1 near the fire, 1 slumped beneath the kitchen shelves with a knife in his ribs, and the last, the polished one in the tailored coat, lay with 2 bullets in his chest and eyes still open, as if stunned that anyone had dared stop him. Ellie hadn't moved in minutes. She sat on the floor with her knees pulled up, Willa still In her arms, the pistol beside her, as if she'd forgotten she was holding it at all. Her lips were chapped. Her hair stuck to her face. Her cheeks were pale, not with fear, but something older, the kind of weariness that came after surviving something the body hadn't fully processed yet. Bo crouched beside her. "You're not bleeding again, are you?" She shook her head. "I don't think so." "You did good." Ellie didn't look at him. "I killed a man." "You saved your daughter." She blinked slowly. "I didn't mean to. He was going to shoot you. I didn't think, Bo. I just fired." "That's how you know it needed doing." She looked at him then, eyes red but steady. "What happens now?" Bo exhaled. "That depends on—" "How many more are coming?" He stood, moved to the man in the coat, and rifled through the inside pockets. A packet of letters, a map, 2 vials of powder, and a telegram, folded neatly in oilskin. He opened it. "Cartwright, to Ellis Brace, retake." The ledger. "Kill the witness, deliver the woman and child, if viable. Do not fail. A.C. Ellis Brace." Bo had heard the name before. A fixer. A bounty broker who never spoke above a whisper but could make a man vanish in the time it took to drink a cup of coffee. He'd come here expecting to walk out with a book and a woman. He left with neither. Bo burned the telegram in the hearth. Then he dragged each of the 4 bodies outside and stacked them behind the barn, beneath a tarp weighted with stones. The ground was too frozen for graves. The wolves would handle the rest by morning. He came back inside to find Ellie standing again, one hand on the edge of the fireplace, the other resting protectively on Willa's small back. Her voice was hoarse. "They'll come again, won't they?" Bo nodded. "Not today, but soon." He looked at the rifle, then at the ledger beneath the hearth, untouched. "We can't stay here." Ellie's breath hitched. "But I can't ride, not yet." "Then we make ready." "When Caleb gets back, we move. What if he doesn't?" Bo didn't answer. The silence said enough. That night they sat by the fire in silence. Ellie dozed. Willa nestled against her chest in a swaddle of old wool. Bo sat against the doorframe, eyes open, revolver resting on one knee. Every crack in the timber made him twitch. Every gust of wind brought his hand a little closer to the hammer. He didn't sleep, not even when his body begged him to. He watched the baby breathe, watched the woman who had pulled life from the jaws of death and then held a pistol with both hands and defied the devil in a tailored coat. He thought of Anna, how she'd never gotten to hold her child, and how somehow, in the span of one night and one storm, another woman had taken up a place in his life that he hadn't known was vacant. He wasn't sure what to do with that, so he just sat, quiet, awake. Caleb Dwyer returned just before dawn. Bo saw him before he heard him, moving. Through the trees on foot, reins in one hand, his face caked with windburn and exhaustion. His horse was lamed, one shoe cracked, but he hadn't stopped. He carried a satchel slung across his back and a shotgun in the other hand. Bo opened the door before he reached the porch. Caleb looked up. "You're still alive, that's good." "They came. 4 of them. I counted 3 bodies by the creek. You miss one?" "No," Bo said. "We buried them in snow." Caleb stepped inside, took one look around the room, and sighed. "Place looks like Gettysburg?" "Feels like it." Ellie stirred on the floor. Bo moved quickly to her side and helped her up. Caleb nodded at her, respectful. "I'm sorry for what you've been through, ma'am. I brought something for the pain." He opened his bag and handed Bo 2 bottles, laudanum, dried jerky, 3 cans of milk substitute, cloth diapers folded, a blanket that didn't smell like mildew. Ellie nearly cried when she saw the milk. Caleb looked at Bo. "Red. Hollow's no good anymore. Cartwright's men have reached there, too. We head west. There's a church near Bearclaw Ridge. Mission run. They take in war widows and runaways. They've got nurses." Bo hesitated. "And law?" "Old kind. Honest kind. You'll be safe. There long enough to plan." Bo crouched by the hearth and pulled the oil-wrapped ledger from the ashes. "We bring this?" We don't leave it behind. Caleb looked around one last time. "Can you ride?" he asked Ellie. She nodded, but her voice was fragile. "I'll find a way." Bo looked at her. "You won't ride alone." "I know." He helped her gather what little they had. He strapped the baby to her chest with 2 layers of fabric. Caleb patched a makeshift sling for the ledger beneath Bo's coat, close to the heart. By mid-morning they were packed. 3 horses, 2 rifles. 1 ledger, 1 newborn, 1 woman who refused to break, and 1 man who'd finally found a reason to fight again. As they left the cabin behind, snow crunching beneath hooves, Bo didn't look back. He'd buried enough behind him. Now it was time to ride toward something worth keeping. They left the cabin like ghosts, silent, cold, and wary of their own shadows. The snowfall had eased to a drift, but it blanketed the world like a warning. Every hoofprint left a trail too easy to follow. Bo rode last, watching the horizon, and erasing tracks where he could, rifle slung low across his back. Caleb led them west, steering through a canyon pass known on old maps as Firewood Hollow, though few locals called it anything but a graveyard for greenhorns. Ellie rode in the middle, Willa pressed tight against her chest, under 2 layers of coats and saddle blanket. The baby didn't cry. She slept most of the time, lulled by the rhythm of the horse and the quiet beat of her mother's heart. But Ellie didn't sleep, not even when the trail softened or the sun peeked through the haze. She kept her back straight and her eyes forward, 1 hand always on the reins, the other resting over her daughter's body like a shield. Every so often, Bo would ride up beside her and ask softly, "You need water? Rest?" And every time she'd shake her head, "Not until we're safe." He stopped asking. By noon, Firewood Canyon cut through the west ridge like a jagged scar. Its stone walls climbed high on either side, casting long shadows over the snow-covered trail. Frozen runoff trickled through fissures in the rock, staining the cliffs with streaks of iron and ash. This place hadn't seen kindness in a long time. Caleb reined in his horse at the mouth of the canyon. "We make it through here, we've got a chance. The mission's 3 days past the other side." Bo scanned the rocks above. "This canyon's a kill box." "I know," Caleb said, "but it's the only way west where the horses won't break their legs. Everything else is ice and shale." Bo turned to Ellie. "We'll ride close." She just nodded. The wind picked up as they entered the canyon, funneled between the cliffs into a low, mournful moan. Snow clung to the rocks in patches, but much of the ground beneath was hard-packed mud glazed with ice. The horses slipped often. Ellie's mare stumbled once, but Bo was beside her in seconds, gripping the bridle until the animal found its footing again. Willa stirred. Ellie hushed her. Gently, they rode like that for an hour, quiet, cautious, every sound amplified by the narrow stone walls. Even the soft clink of Caleb's saddle stirrups sounded like gunfire in the tight space. Then Bo heard it, a soft, metallic click. He didn't speak. He just pulled the reins hard and raised his hand. Caleb stopped mid-step. Ellie froze. "What is it?" she whispered. Bo dismounted. He walked forward 10 feet, bent low, and spotted it. A tripwire, strung between 2 thorn shrubs, barely visible in the snow, taut, clean, and leading up the wall to a rock ledge where a half-buried crate lay nestled in brush. An ambush. Bo stood slowly and turned. "We're not alone," a voice echoed from above. "No, you're not." They looked up. Figures moved on both sides of the canyon. 5 men, rifles trained downward, half camouflaged in winter coats and pine branch cloaks. At the center of them, standing tall on a flat outcropping, was a woman. She wore a long gray duster and a black hat, her silver braid tucked beneath a scarf. Her rifle was slung low, but her posture spoke of someone who knew exactly how fast she could bring it to bear. Caleb cursed under his breath. "That's Widow Kate." Bo raised a brow. "Friend of yours?" More like the reason I still check under my bed some nights. Bo called out, "We don't want trouble. Widow Kate's voice echoed clean off the walls. "You brought it anyway. I don't let men pass through my canyon armed unless I know who they answer to." "I don't answer to anyone," Bo replied. She raised a hand. One of her men stepped forward, a spyglass in hand. He whispered something to her. She nodded. "You're Bo Thatcher, ex-lawman from Gray Fork. You went dark 7 years ago." Bo's jaw flexed. "You've been asking around." "Cartwright's been asking louder," she replied. "Offered coin to anyone who brings you in with a leather book and a woman who just gave birth." Bo didn't respond. Widow Kate looked at Ellie now. "You her?" Ellie raised her chin. "I am." Kate nodded. "Brave thing riding this canyon. Most folks wouldn't." Bo took a step forward. "We've got a newborn with us. You want coin? Take the book. Let us go." Kate laughed. "If I wanted coin, I'd be in Salt Branch sipping brandy." "I've got more use for truth than gold." Bo frowned. She continued. "My brother died in a mining collapse 6 years ago. Cartwright owned the company. Said it was an accident. Said nobody was to blame." She spat. "That ledger of yours says different." Bo stepped closer. "So let us pass." Kate studied them in silence. Then, "You give me the book. I'll let the woman and the baby ride free." Ellie's hand tightened on the reins. "No." Kate tilted her head. "She doesn't go anywhere without me," Bo said. Kate looked at Caleb. "And you?" "I'm just tired," he said. "And out of good roads." Kate considered. Then she raised her hand. One of her men tossed a rope ladder down the canyon wall. "You've got 10 minutes. Bring the ledger. We'll talk." Bo turned to Ellie. "I'll go. Stay with Caleb." "No," she said softly. "I'm coming." "You can barely—" "I'm coming." Bo saw there was no convincing her otherwise. So he helped her off the horse, carried Willa himself, and climbed slowly with Ellie behind. Caleb stayed below, rifle raised, watching the shadows. At the top, Widow Kate waited near a fire pit, her rifle propped in the snow. She offered no greetings, just pointed to a log bench. Bo handed Willa back to Ellie and sat beside her. "Here." He took the ledger from beneath his coat and placed it in Kate's gloved hands. She opened it, flipped pages slowly. When she reached a name she recognized, her lips parted. "Pastor Williams." Bo nodded. "Took bribes to lie on death warrants." She kept reading. "This goes all the way to state officials." "It's a noose around Cartwright's neck," Bo said. Kate closed the book slowly. "So why give it to me?" "Because we need to live through this." "And I figure you've got the firepower to keep that book safe." Kate studied him. "You think you're done with it?" "No. But maybe I'm not the one who needs to carry it right now." Ellie stood. "You help us get to Bear Claw. After that, you can have the damn book." Kate smiled faintly. "You've got iron in you, girl. You know that?" Ellie didn't smile. "I know what I've lost, and what I refuse to lose next." Kate looked at Willa, then at Bo. Then she nodded. "You ride with us. We'll escort you to the river bridge. After that, you'll have to ride fast and light." "Deal," Bo said. Kate handed him back the ledger. He blinked. "You're not keeping it?" She shrugged. "Cartwright's scared of you holding it. That's worth more than the ink inside." She turned to her men. "Clear the tripwire. We've got company for the next stretch." By nightfall they made it through the canyon. 6 riders now, a woman and child in the center, a lawman with ghosts behind his eyes, and a book that could undo everything the territory thought it knew about power. Ellie didn't speak for most of the ride, until Bo rode beside her again. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, then looked up. "You said you lost everything," she said. "Back then." "I did. You still feel that way?" Bo looked ahead at the moonlit trail, then down at Willa, then at Ellie. "No," he said softly. "Not anymore." They reached the river at dusk. The sun had bled gold across the treetops, then dipped fast behind the hills, leaving the sky streaked with violet and ash. Snow glittered in long shadows, and the trees that lined the riverbank stood like sentinels, bare, unmoving, watching. The bridge was narrow, old. Half its boards bowed under the weight of time and frost. But it was the only way west without crossing 20 miles of freezing current or looping back through territory already marked by Cartwright's riders. Widow Kate halted at the edge of the tree line, raised her hand, and signaled a halt. "Don't ride across until it's checked," she said. Bo and Caleb dismounted, rifles in hand. They moved up the slope with slow, measured steps. Every crack in the snow beneath their boots felt like a gunshot. Ellie stayed back with Kate and the other scouts. Willa tucked inside her coat, her eyes sharp despite the cold seeping through every layer. Bo stepped onto the bridge first, creaked, groaned, held. He scanned the far side of the river. Nothing moved. No prints, no smoke, no shimmer of scope glass from a tree. But he'd lived too long to trust silence. Caleb moved beside him. "If Cartwright has anyone posted, they'll wait until we're mid-span." Bo nodded. That's how. He'd do it, too. They moved together, testing boards as they went. The water beneath was black and fast-moving, swollen from storm runoff. One fall would mean a death sentence. When they reached the halfway point, Caleb paused and turned. "Signal?" "M." Bo raised his arm. Kate saw it from the tree line. She let out a whistle. 2 short bursts. The others mounted. Ellie took the reins with stiff fingers, her jaw set, her posture straight, despite the exhaustion written in every muscle. She urged her horse forward, following Kate, but something felt wrong. Bo saw it in the trees just a second too late. A flicker. Movement. Then, the crack of a rifle. A bullet whined past Caleb's head. Then another. Bo dove, grabbed Ellie's reins, and yanked the horse back as she screamed. Willa let out a terrified wail. Kate shouted orders. Her riders dismounted, returned fire. From the trees beyond the river, 5 men rose from snow-blind cover. Cartwright scouts. They wore coats with no badges, boots meant for silence, and eyes hard as nails. One of them carried a lever action rifle with a scope. Another had a sawed-off shotgun, and the grin of a man who didn't care if he left corpses in his wake. The rifleman fired again. Bo covered Ellie and Willa with his own body, dragging them behind a tree as splinters flew. Caleb shouted from the bridge, "We're pinned! Circle left." Kate's voice cut through the chaos. "Flank their rear." Bo looked at Ellie. "Stay down." Then he ran. He moved fast, low behind trunks, dodging branches, heart pounding like a drumline in his chest. He reached the slope on the near side of the bridge and climbed, using frozen roots for handholds, boots slipping on the ice. When he crested the ridge, he saw them, Cartwright's scouts, dug in behind a fallen log. One was reloading. Another was aiming toward Kate. Bo didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and fired. The man with the sawed-off dropped first, a clean shot to the collarbone. The others turned, startled, but Caleb had already followed Bo's flank. More gunfire. The scout with the scope took a round to the thigh and fell back with a scream. The last 2 retreated, disappearing into the trees. Silence fell again. Sharp, sudden, ringing. Bo exhaled, then sprinted back down the ridge. Ellie was on her knees behind the tree, clutching Willa tightly. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were dry. Kate met him at the edge of the bridge, her face tight. "Anyone dead?" 2 down. Others ran. Caleb limped back, bleeding from a gash on his arm. "They had that bridge marked. They knew we'd be here," Kate cursed. "We move, now." Bo helped Ellie back into the saddle. She didn't argue, just pulled Willa tighter and whispered something Bo couldn't hear, something between prayer and promise. They crossed the bridge in silence. It creaked again, moaned like it remembered the violence, but it held, and when they reached the other side, Kate paused long enough to light a flare. Bo frowned. "Why?" She tossed it into the brush, then into the bridge. The dry boards caught fast. Flames licked across the wood, jumping from rail to rail. Within minutes the whole span was burning, a wall of fire between them and Cartwright's reach. "No turning back now," Kate muttered. They made camp in the hollow between 2 ridgelines, hidden from the wind, shielded by pine. Fires were lit low, with wet moss thrown on top to keep smoke down. They ate in silence. Jerky, bread, melted snow. Ellie fed Willa from the tin of milk substitute. Her hands barely shook now. Bo sat across from her, sharpening his knife. Finally, Ellie looked up. Why are they still following us? Bo met her eyes. The ledger. It's not just names, it's insurance, blackmail. If it gets out, they lose power. More than that, Caleb said from his bedroll. Cartwright built half this territory on threats and bribes. You tear that out at the roots, it doesn't just fall, it burns. Kate leaned against a tree, arms crossed, which is why we deliver it to the mission in Bearclaw. From there, it goes east. We get it in the hands of someone who can read it and survive long enough to speak its truth. Ellie looked at Bo. And us? Bo held her gaze. We keep moving until Willa is too old to remember any of this. Ellie looked down at her daughter, then nodded. That night, snow fell again. Gentler this time. Like a soft blanket after a hard day, Bo lay beside the fire, coat drawn tight, one arm under his head, the other near his revolver. He stared up at the stars. Between trees, pin pricks of light against the black. He remembered Anna's voice, the way she used to hum when she cooked, the way she whispered things to a child that never got the chance to answer. He wondered if Willa would remember this sound. Snow on pine, wind in the trees, fire crackling near her feet. Maybe not, but maybe that was the point. Maybe surviving meant building a world so different from what nearly broke you that your children never recognized the shape of your old scars. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he dreamed of tomorrow. They saw the steeple before they heard the bell. Rising from a hill brushed with frost, the wooden cross atop the Bearclaw mission gleamed like a candle in the pale noon light. Snow still fell, but soft now, the kind that quiets footsteps and forgives broken tracks. Beyond the ridge, a grove of cottonwoods framed the mission's outer wall, and the chapel's stone hearth sent up a plume of smoke as if to say, "We're still here." Bo slowed his horse, staring at the site like it was a place he'd once imagined. In prayer, back when he still believed in prayer. Ellie sat straighter in the saddle beside him, Willa curled in sleep beneath her cloak. Her breath fogged in the cold, but her shoulders no longer sagged. They were only 3 days from the cabin, but time had stretched between then and now like a lifetime. Caleb rode ahead, grinning like a man who hadn't smiled in years. "There it is," he called over his shoulder. "Haven't seen it since the war. But it still stands." Kate signaled her riders to fan out. "We check the ridge before we go knocking." Bo watched her scout the slope, her movements crisp, experienced. She wasn't the kind of woman to leave things to fate. He appreciated that. When the signal came, a whistle sharp and low, they rode down the hill. At the gates, 2 figures stepped out. One was a wiry man with a crossbow and a face full of scars. The other, taller, wore a black coat with a white collar. Father Josiah. Bo recognized him instantly. The priest hadn't aged much. Same deep-set eyes, same firm mouth. Only the lines around his temples had faded to gray. Josiah stepped forward, scanning the riders. "Who comes seeking rest?" Kate spoke first. "Travelers with wounded hearts, and one child with a future too loud to ignore." Josiah's expression softened. "That earns you a door, if not a bed." He opened the gate himself. They rode in slow. Inside the mission walls, warmth bloomed like a secret the wind couldn't steal. The courtyard was small but well kept. Chickens pecked the frozen dirt near a stack of firewood. 2 children carried buckets from the pump house to the chapel. An older woman in a shawl swept snow from the stone steps. Bo helped Ellie dismount. She nearly collapsed, but he caught her, one arm around her waist, the other steadying Willa's blanket. Josiah approached. "You rode through the fire for that one, didn't you?" Bo nodded. "She's the reason we made it this far." Ellie looked up. "I need rest, but only if you don't ask for names." Josiah smiled kindly. "We have no ledgers here." He led her inside. Kate turned to Bo. "We'll stay one night, maybe two. After that, my men ride north." He met her eyes. "Thank you," she shrugged. "Don't thank me yet. You're not done bleeding." Inside the chapel, Ellie was given a cot by the hearth. A nurse checked her vitals, cleaned the cracked skin on her hands, and made tea that smelled like honey and bark. Willa slept through it all, stirring only once to whimper before falling quiet again. Bo stood near the door the entire time, watching every face. Trust was harder than survival. Caleb entered, bandage clean on his arm, a bowl of stew in one hand. "Not poisoned," he said, holding it out. "I already lived through one serving." Ellie smiled faintly and accepted it. Caleb sat beside Bo. "You know Josiah?" "Long time ago," Bo said. "He buried my father. Guess he's about to save your daughter." Bo looked at Ellie and then at Willa. "She's not my daughter," he said. Caleb gave a wry smile. "Ain't that what makes it matter?" That night, after Willa had been bathed and fed, Ellie fell into the first deep sleep she'd had in weeks. Her hand still curled around the edge of Willa's blanket. Her hair, loose now, fanned across the pillow like wet ink. The firelight flickered on her cheekbones. She looked older somehow, and stronger. Bo stepped out into the courtyard, cold, biting his lungs. Josiah joined him near the pump well. "She's been through hell," the priest said softly. "So have we." Josiah nodded. "You still carrying guilt like a saddle?" Bo didn't answer. The priest gestured toward the sky. "Some folks think heaven's a faraway place, but I think it's anywhere a man turns back before he crosses the line too deep. I've crossed a lot of lines, but you turned back." Bo stared at the stars. "I found something I didn't think I'd ever find again." Josiah waited. A reason, the next day, brought news. A rider arrived before sunrise, bloodied, half-conscious, nearly frozen. One of Kate's scouts who had stayed back to monitor the ridge trail. He delivered the words with cracked lips. Cartwright knows, the ledger, the child, the priest, everything. "He sent 10 riders north," the scout rasped. "But he's not coming for you with thugs this time. He's sending a judge." Bo frowned. "Judge?" Josiah stepped forward. "Judge Hardin?" The scout nodded. Bo clenched his jaw. "Cartwright's cleaning up with law now." Kate looked grim. "Hardin's no judge. He's a hammer with papers. If he shows up, it won't be for trial. It'll be for burial." Ellie came to the door of the chapel, Willa in her arms. Bo turned. "We have to move again," he said. Ellie didn't flinch. "Then we move." Kate shook her head. "Not yet. You run again. He paints you as fugitives. You stay. You get seen." "Heard, believed." Bo looked at her. "You're saying we go public." Kate nodded. "Give Josiah the ledger. Let him preach with it. Broadcast every damn name. If you vanish now, Cartwright spins his tale. But if people see you, holding that baby, telling the truth, it might be the one thing he can't silence." Josiah turned to Bo. "I'll read it from the pulpit. I'll name every name." Bo looked at Ellie. She didn't hesitate. "Do it," she said. He took her hand, and for the first time they didn't run. The bell rang at high noon. Its chime echoed across the valley, sharp, clear, unhurried. The kind of sound that called not just ears, but consciences. Townsfolk from the scattered cabins nearby emerged like ghosts from the snow, drawn by the promise of warmth or maybe something more. By the time the second bell rang, the chapel pews were full. Women clutched shawls around their shoulders. Men stood with hats pressed to chests. Children sat quietly in laps, wide-eyed and unsure why everyone looked so serious. Bo stood in the back, arms crossed, rifle leaning against the wall behind him. Ellie sat near the front, Willa wrapped in fresh cloth, her small face peeking out from the wool with blinking, sleepy eyes. Caleb hovered near the door. Kate and 2 of her riders lined the left wall, eyes scanning every shadow like hounds, waiting for a shot to ring out. At the pulpit stood Father Josiah, the ledger open before him like Scripture. He didn't speak at first. He let the silence swell. Then he placed both hands on the book and looked out at the gathered faces. "Some truths don't come in time to save hope," he said, voice low, steady. "But they still come, and when they do, they deserve to be heard." The congregation leaned in. "This," he said, tapping the book, "was taken from a man who meant to sell it to the devil, a man who trafficked in suffering, a man who stole names, silenced voices, and thought he could profit off the rot beneath our laws." He opened to the first page, Marshal Gregory Pike. Paid to look away as 3 ranches were burned, bribes totaling $700, witnesses now buried. Gasps, Bo's hand tightened into a fist. Sheriff Allen Crowley received funds from Asa Cartwright in exchange for forged land deeds. Result, 17 families displaced. Murmurs spread through the crowd now. Shock, outrage. Josiah turned the page. Judge Abraham Hardin issued death warrants for men proven innocent, at least 2 hanged, without trial. People looked at each other now. Some whispered, others stood. Josiah looked up. "I will not read every name, not yet. But I will say this, these crimes are real, and the people who carried them out walk among us." Someone shouted from the back, "And what do we do about it?" Josiah didn't flinch. "We stand together," he said. "We protect the innocent. We do not let fear dictate truth. That child," he pointed to Willa, "was born into a world trying to kill her before she ever drew breath. But you get to decide whether she grows up knowing justice or silence. All." Eyes turned to Ellie. She didn't shrink. She stood, spoke loud and clear. "My name is Ellie Morrow," she said. "That man, Ray Eddings, said he'd take me to safety. He lied. He meant to sell me, sell my daughter. And when he died, we were the ones hunted." Gasps again. "I didn't know Bo Thatcher. I didn't know Kate or Caleb, but they chose to fight for me when they could have walked away." She held up Willa for all to see. "She is the only reason I'm still alive." The room was silent. Then someone began to clap. Another followed. Then more, until the room echoed with it. Slow, strong, real. Bo's throat tightened. Kate leaned over to him. "You just became folk heroes." He didn't smile. He just watched Ellie and felt something in his chest crack open. After the sermon, they gathered in the chapel's back room. Josiah closed the ledger and tucked it inside a thick canvas satchel. "It goes east," he said. "Tonight, I've got a wagon hidden in the hills. One of Kate's riders will take it through the pass." "Will it make it?" Bo asked. "If it doesn't," Josiah said, "the words have already been copied." He held up a folded packet. "Carbon. Sheets, handwritten duplicates." Bo exhaled. "Smart," Caleb grunted. "Cartwright won't like this." "No," Kate said. "He'll hate it, because for once he's chasing the truth." That night they lit no fires. They ate cold bread and jerked meat, wrapped in blankets in the chapel's rear. Kate posted 2 guards at the ridge. Caleb cleaned all 4 rifles and set them within reach. Bo took first watch. The stars were out, sharp and white. He sat on the chapel's porch, coat drawn tight, revolver across his knees. Ellie stepped out quietly. "You should be sleeping," he said. She joined him on the step. "So should you." They sat in silence. Finally she whispered, "When the war ended, what did you do first?" Bo thought. "I dug a hole, planted a pear tree, said I'd never shoot again. Did it grow?" He looked down at the revolver in his lap. "No." Ellie pulled her coat tighter. "I don't know how to go back to who I was," she said. "Before the storm, before Ray." "You don't," Bo said softly. "You go forward with pieces." She turned to him. "What if the pieces don't fit anymore?" He looked at her, then at Willa, who slept beside them in a basket Josiah had found behind the altar. "They don't have to," he said. "They just have to hold." Ellie leaned her head on his shoulder, and for once Bo let her. He arrived just after sunrise. A black wagon crested the southern ridge, flanked by 2 riders and pulled by a team of matched bays. Its wheels were clean, no dust, no rust, like it hadn't traveled far, or like every part of it had been scrubbed before the journey. The man who stepped out wasn't dressed for winter. He wore a long coat of wool lined with satin. His boots gleamed. His gloves were deer hide. And the badge he pinned to his chest had been polished to a mirror sheen. Judge Abraham Hardin, Bo Thatcher watched from the bell tower as the man approached the chapel with deliberate steps and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Caleb cursed beside him. That's the man who sentenced a deaf boy to hang because he couldn't answer questions in court. Bo said nothing. Hardin stopped at the chapel door and waited. Not a knock, not a shout, just a presence, like someone who expected the world. To yield without protest, Josiah opened the door slowly. "Morning," Hardin said. "I've come regarding a matter of stolen federal property. May I enter?" Josiah stepped aside. "You may visit, but you don't command here." Hardin chuckled. "Same Josiah who gave last rites to the Salt Branch sheriff? You haven't aged, and you haven't changed." Hardin's eyes scanned the chapel. He spotted Ellie almost instantly. She stood near the altar, Willa in her arms, back straight, eyes calm. Behind her, Bo stepped down from the bell tower and moved to her side. Caleb, rifle slung, stood behind the pews. Kate didn't enter, but Bo knew she was watching through the front window, hand on the hammer loop of her holster. Hardin removed his glove slowly. "I'm not here to arrest anyone," he said. "Not unless I'm given reason. I'm here to retrieve government evidence, an item known to be in the possession of one Bo Thatcher, a former deputy out of Gray Fork." Bo didn't blink. "I'm no longer a deputy." "But you're still carrying that ledger, aren't you?" Bo stepped forward. "The ledger isn't yours." "It's federal," Hardin said. "It contains information relevant to open cases, sealed indictments, and internal affairs. I've been authorized to recover it." "By Cartwright?" Bo asked flatly. Hardin smiled. "Cartwright is a respected businessman." So was Judas. A flicker in Hardin's smile, gone in an instant. He turned to Ellie. "You were seen fleeing a murder scene. Witnesses say you were in possession of an infant and the personal belongings of one Ray Eddings, a federal marshal. Ray Eddings." "Kidnap me?" Ellie said loud and clear. "He meant to sell my baby." "You have proof?" "I'm still here," she said. "That's my proof." Hardin looked at Josiah. "You're harboring fugitives." Josiah folded his arms. "I'm harboring souls. Until God says otherwise." Hardin exhaled. "Then this is how it'll go. You give me the ledger, I leave. No blood, no trials. And if we don't, I send word. And men come. Not lawyers, not marshals, men who don't sleep until the Job's done." Bo stepped beside Ellie. "We've seen your men. They bleed like everyone else." Hardin's expression didn't change, but the room felt colder. "I'll give you one day," he said. "Think it over." He turned, walked back through the snow, climbed into his wagon, and rode back to the tree line. That night, no one slept. Kate doubled the guard. Caleb wired ahead to a contact in Bismarck, warning them that if they didn't receive a second message by week's end, to go public. Ellie sat beside the fire, rocking Willa, who cried off and on from the cold. Bo paced near the altar, the ledger heavy in his hand. Josiah approached. "He'll come back." "I know. With soldiers, maybe, or guns. He'll say it's justice. Might even believe it." Bo looked at him. "Then we don't let him define the word." Josiah placed a hand on his shoulder. "Whatever happens, this chapel will stand behind you." The sun didn't rise. It clawed. Gray clouds crept across. The hills like smoke, and the wind came harder, angrier. Bo stood in the bell tower again, spyglass pressed to his eye. Riders, not 2, not 5, 8, maybe 10, all armed. No banners, no uniforms, just long coats, rifles, and cold purpose. Hardin rode at the front. Bo climbed down. "They're coming." Kate and her men took positions at the windows. Caleb readied the rifles, loaded 2 more pistols, and tossed. One to Bo. Ellie kissed Willa's forehead. "She stays in the basement." No, Bo said. Yes, Ellie insisted. If something happens, she's got to live. Bo didn't argue again. He carried the basket to the stone cellar and covered it with quilts. Willa was quiet now, watching, like she knew, like she remembered the storm she was born in. Hardin rode to the gates with his men behind him. He didn't ask this time. He spoke. In the name of Judge Abraham Hardin, I hereby order the seizure of all material related to Case 118B, also known as the Cartwright Ledger. His voice rang out, cold and legal. Josiah stood at the door. This is holy ground. Hardin didn't care. He raised a hand. His men readied weapons. Bo stepped out first, then Kate, then Ellie. Hardin's voice faltered. You're making a mistake? No, Bo said. You are. Josiah raised the ledger high in one hand. This is truth, he said, and if it dies here, so be it. But it won't be buried in silence. Then he lit a match and tossed it to the wind, not to burn the ledger, but to burn the oil-slicked banner above the chapel door. A signal. Gunfire erupted. Kate fired first, clean shot to the man beside Hardin. Caleb shot second. Bo dropped to waist. One knee, returned fire. Ellie ducked behind a barrel, covered Willa's cellar entrance with her pistol in both hands. Hardin's men fired back. Two fell in the first volley. One dropped his rifle and ran. Another was pulled from his horse by one of Kate's scouts emerging from the woods behind. Bo fought like he had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. It was over in 2 minutes. Hardin tried to run. Bo caught him at the tree line. Gun drawn. Hardin turned, gasping. You can't kill me. I'm the law. Bo stared him down. No, he said. You're the wound. And he walked away, didn't shoot, didn't hang. He let him live. Because some men didn't deserve martyrdom. They deserved the long, cold shame of being seen. That night, Ellie tucked Willa into her arms and watched the fire flicker low. Bo sat beside her, hand bandaged, blood dried in his collar. She leaned her head against him, and for the first time in a long time, neither of them looked toward the door. They looked at each other and breathed. Bo Thatcher hadn't slept, but his eyes were closed. He sat on the chapel's porch steps with a cup of coffee going cold in his hand, boots planted in drying mud still streaked with blood. The snow had stopped. A thin crust of frost glazed the field where bodies had fallen, and the wind had gone still, as if the valley itself didn't know what to say about the men who had come there to kill and failed. The only sounds were quiet ones. The breath of horses from the stable, the muted clang of Caleb's stacking rifles near the shed, and the faint murmur of Josiah, leading a prayer over the last body not yet claimed by the dirt. Ellie stepped onto the porch beside Bo, wrapped in a wool shawl too big for her shoulders. Her hair was loose again, and her face had lost the ash-pale tension of battle. In her arms, Willa slept in the sling, cheeks pink with warmth, mouth parted in peace. Bo looked up. You get some rest? A little, she said softly. You should have had more. So should you. She sat beside him. They watched the light creep across the chapel roof, slow and yellow, like it had no intention of rushing into a world still holding its breath. You didn't kill him, she said. Bo nodded. I wanted to. Why didn't you? He took a long sip of the coffee. Because you were watching. Ellie looked down at her daughter. I wasn't sure mercy lived in you anymore, she whispered. Me. Neither. They sat like that for a while. Then Ellie said, Josiah wants us to stay through Sunday. Says the people are planning to hold a gathering, something about standing in daylight. He means a declaration, Bo said. A way to say, we don't hide from this anymore. Do you think it'll hold? Bo rubbed the bridge of his nose. I think. Even the strongest walls break when fear's louder than truth. But maybe if enough folks stand together, fear has to wait outside. Ellie reached out, placed her hand over his. You stood, she said, when I couldn't. He looked at her hand, then at her, then laced his fingers through hers. By midday, a wagon from Down Valley arrived with supplies, bread, medicine, nails, and word that folks as far as Pine Bluff had heard of the ledger. Josiah had sent duplicate copies eastward already, one by rail courier, one hidden in a saddlebag on a pinto gelding, and a third tucked inside a hollowed-out Bible. Cartwright wouldn't be able to burn them all. Bo helped bury the last of the dead in the snow-packed ground behind the chapel. Kate stood beside him, her breath misting in the air. "You let the judge live," she said quietly. "I did. He'll talk." "Good," Bo muttered. "Let him." Kate studied him a moment. "You're not the same man I heard about." He kept digging. Maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe they weren't, she said. But they're about to start changing. She turned, whistled to her men. "I'm riding north," she said. "Somebody's got to make sure folks know who saved the mission." Bo straightened. "They'll say you did." She smiled. "They'd be wrong, but I won't correct 'em." She mounted her horse. "You staying? For now? Good." She paused at the gate. "You ever need me again, Bo Thatcher? Send a flame." Then she rode off. The chapel bell rang at dusk, not for warning this time, but for gathering. Lanterns were lit. Children played in the courtyard. Folks brought food and quiet music. Not a celebration exactly, but something like it. A statement. That the world would not be allowed to forget what happened here. Bo wore a clean shirt and his old coat, patched at the shoulder where a bullet had grazed him. Caleb stood beside him, cradling a mug of cider like it was gold. "I thought you'd have ridden by now," Caleb said. Bo looked around. "And go where?" "Back to the mountains. Find another empty cabin. I've lived enough in silence." Caleb clinked his mug to Bo's. To Noyes, then. Ellie joined them near the fire. Her hair was braided now, her cheeks flush with wind and warmth. Willa dozed in a sling, her head nestled against her mother's collarbone. "Are you staying?" Caleb asked her. Ellie looked at Bo before she answered. "Yes." No hesitation. Bo didn't smile, but his shoulders lowered a fraction. The way they hadn't since the storm. Caleb tipped his hat. "Then maybe this place has a chance." That night, after the fires were banked and the children had been tucked into borrowed beds, Bo sat alone in the chapel, the ledger on the table before him. He flipped through the pages one last time, not because he needed to, but because he wanted to see the names again, to know them, to remember that each letter was a life. Ellie entered behind him. "You still reading it?" He nodded. "Feels like I should." She stepped forward. Laid her hand on the open page. "You gave me back my name," she said. "I won't let them take it again." Bo looked at her. "You're not afraid anymore." She shook her head. "Not with you here." He closed the book, took her hand, and, for the first time in years, he didn't think about what was lost. He thought about what could begin. 3 days passed with no gunfire, no riders, no threats whispered through the trees, just winter thawing, slow under a pale sun, and the quiet rhythm of rebuilding. Sawdust, hammer strikes, mended fences, and hot bread passed hand to hand. The chapel bell now rang for meals and prayer, not warning. On the 4th morning, Bo Thatcher walked the perimeter with a rifle slung across his back. Not because he expected danger, but because he remembered it. Habits like that didn't fade. They just grew gentler around the edges. He stopped near the edge of the cottonwood grove, stared at the trail where Judge Hardin had ridden away, still alive, still dangerous, but no longer invisible. Then he heard a voice behind him. "You always. Patrol at dawn?" Bo turned. Ellie stood in the frost, boots damp from the grass, hair tied back with a bit of twine. Her coat hung open, Willa wrapped tight against her in a sling across her chest. He nodded. "Old habit. You looking for someone?" "No," he said. "I think I'm finally trying to believe no one's coming." She stepped beside him. "I thought I'd never feel safe again," she whispered. "Even after Ray died, even after you helped me birth her, I didn't believe in peace." "And now?" She looked at her daughter. "She's got a name, a roof, warmth. I call that a start." Bo smiled faintly. "You never told me why Willa." "Not really." Ellie thought for a moment. "When I was young, I had a book, one of those dime novels that made girls dream too big." Willa was a character. She didn't carry a gun or ride a horse, but she made a crooked judge cry in open court. Bo chuckled. Sounds familiar. I wanted to name her after someone fearless. You did. They stood together for a long time, saying nothing, listening to wind move through the cottonwoods like a memory with no sharp edges. Then Ellie said softly, "She needs a last name." Bo turned to her. Ellie didn't flinch. "I don't want her carrying Ray's, not after what he was, what he did." Bo was quiet. Ellie went on. "I don't need a ceremony or permission. But if you meant what you said about not being alone anymore, then maybe we don't have to keep pretending we're separate." She paused. "She already looks at you like you're hers." Bo's throat tightened. "She's not blood," he said. "She doesn't care," Ellie whispered, "and neither do I." He reached forward, gently touched the blanket beneath which Willa stirred. The baby's hand curled around his finger without opening her eyes. He looked at Ellie. Then, "We give her a name worth standing on." She nodded. "Willa Thatcher," she said. And for the first time in years, Bo felt like a name had saved him. They held the naming the next day in the chapel, just a small circle, Josiah, Caleb, Kate, who had returned briefly with word from the east, and a few of the families who had stood with them during the siege. No sermon, no candles, just truth. Josiah stood beside the altar. "Names matter," he said. "They are more than words. They are stories we carry." He turned to Ellie. "Do you name this child?" "I do," she said, voice firm. "Willa June Thatcher." Caleb let out a quiet breath. Kate gave a crooked smile. Josiah turned to Bo. "And do you claim her?" Bo looked at Willa, then at Ellie. "Yes," he said. It was the clearest thing. He'd spoken in years. Josiah dipped his fingers in water from the basin, touched Willa's forehead. The baby stirred, blinked up at the rafters. "You are named in the sight of those who will defend you," Josiah said. "May no man take what you are owed." The room stayed silent until the baby let out a hiccup. Everyone chuckled, even Bo. Later, Bo and Caleb stood outside as the light faded. Kate was preparing to ride again, north this time, to rouse more towns to the cause. Caleb lit a pipe. "You ever think you'd have a family again?" Bo shook his head. "Didn't think I deserved one." Caleb looked toward the chapel. "You didn't get what you deserved. You got what you chose." They stood in silence. Then Caleb asked, "You ever going to open that smithy you used to talk about?" "Back in the old days?" Bo tilted his head. "I might, if the land settles, if the kid likes hammers." Caleb grinned. "Kids don't get to choose. They just get raised." Bo turned to him. "That's why it matters who raises them." Caleb nodded, then stepped away into the dusk. That night Ellie found Bo near the stove, writing something on the back of a scrap of wood. She leaned over his shoulder. "What's that?" He turned it. One word carved in clean letters, "Home." He tucked it under the mantelstone. "Not for show? For memory?" Ellie smiled. "You're sure you want this?" "Want what?" "A woman with scars. A baby who screams at wind. A future, no. One promised." Bo stepped close, wrapped his arms around her and Willa both. "I want every inch of it," he said. She kissed him, and this time it wasn't desperation. It was beginning. Spring came slow to the valley. It didn't shout or burst through, like in the storybooks. It crept, melted, waited. The snow withdrew like a defeated army, leaving behind patches of green and the fragile color of new life. Sprigs of yarrow, shoots of dogwood, and the shy songs of birds returning to trees they'd abandoned months ago. Bo Thatcher planted a garden behind the chapel, just a small patch, turnips, carrots, and one crooked row of beans. Willa sat nearby in a basket full of quilts, babbling at the wind like it was telling her secrets. Ellie hung laundry near the fence, her hair tied back, sleeves rolled high. She laughed more now, sang sometimes too. The world hadn't healed, but they had started to. The Cartwright name still loomed out east. There were hearings now, articles in traveling papers, A marshal in Bismarck had opened an investigation. Towns that once bowed their heads began to raise them, and though the man himself hadn't been seen since the snow fell, his silence now sounded more like weakness than threat, because the ledger had been read, and the names could not be unheard. One afternoon, Josiah found Bo kneeling beside a sapling just outside the chapel wall. He was planting it slowly, carefully, one scoop of earth at a time. "Pear?" the old priest asked. Bo nodded. "Didn't take the first time. Might now." Josiah smiled. "You picked the right season." "Had to wait on the thaw?" Josiah stepped back and let him finish. Later that night, Ellie sat beside Bo on the chapel steps. Willa dozed in her lap, face soft in the flicker of lantern light. "Do you think she'll remember any of this?" Ellie asked. "No," Bo said. "Is that a good thing?" He thought for a long moment. "I used to think pain was the only thing that stuck, that if something broke you, it carved your name in deeper than anything good could." Ellie watched him quietly, but she won't remember the storm, or the man who died on that floor, or the shots we fired to protect her. He looked at her now. She'll remember songs, and stew, and how you hum when you hang the laundry. Ellie smiled softly. "She'll remember the way you carry her," she whispered, "and how you always touch the brim of your hat when you come through the door." Bo leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "Good." They sat in silence. Inside, the chapel glowed dim with the last light of the fire. Outside, the moon crept over the hills like it was ashamed of being late. "Do you miss your old life?" Ellie asked. Bo shook his head. "That life missed me. This one knows where I stand." She reached out, touched his hand. He laced their fingers together, same as that first morning after the storm. Weeks passed. Then months. Caleb left for good in June, with promises to return before the frost. He'd taken up a post near the border, helping wire towns together with messages and news. Josiah expanded the mission, turned the old barn into a schoolhouse. Ellie began teaching girls their letters, Willa strapped to her back, cooing like she already understood the lessons. Bo spent his mornings working leather and timber. In the evenings, he taught two boys from a nearby ranch how to shoot straight and speak with honesty. On Sundays, he didn't attend every sermon, but he never missed the final hymn, and every time he passed the garden, he stopped beside the tree, watched it grow, touched its trunk, said nothing, just stood. One night, thunder rolled in from the west. Not sharp, not sudden, just a distant rumble, like the world stretching its spine. Rain followed. Gentle at first, then heavy, filling the valley with sound. Ellie and Bo stood at the doorway. Willa nestled between them. She reached up and touched the glass. "She's not afraid," Ellie whispered. "She was born in worse." Bo said, "They stayed there until the storm softened, until the rain became rhythm." Then Ellie turned to him. "What do you see when you look at her?" she asked. He didn't hesitate. "Hope," he said. "Like something got planted in the wreckage." Ellie leaned her head against his shoulder. "I never thought we'd survive." "We didn't," Bo murmured. "Not the people we were." She nodded and smiled. "I like who we are now." When Willa took her first step, it was toward the garden. She wobbled, fell, got back up. Bo knelt beside her, hands out, waiting. When she reached him, he scooped her up, lifted her high. "You made it, little bird," he said. "You stood." She laughed, and the wind carried it across the field like the memory of something holy.